I almost missed the seat there. Hey, been working really hard down at my cabin, throwing firewood onto a tarp, and like pulled my arms out. So yesterday I was so exhausted I felt like I was gonna die. So I apologize for that. There are people on live stream that wanted me to relate these stories. Out of 6,300 plus videos, I've never made a video about stories. So I've got 3 stories for you here. You'll like them, so just bear with me for a second. During these holidays, since a lot of what I do, or maybe about 40% of what I do, are videos on photography, even though I don't make highly polished, highly edited videos, I am so proud of the fact that I'm not pimping or shilling, and I'm not posting affiliate links. Well, there's no may about it. That definitely makes me poor because I don't post affiliate links. But at least I know I'm real. And as someone that used to fix cameras and knows a lot about lenses, actually I don't know a lot, I know a lot. I'm proud of the fact, however I look or sound or come off, and I'm proud of the fact that I don't do what those people do that I really don't have any respect for. So anyway, before doing these 3 stories, I'd like to say thanks so much, and I'm never going to say, click the like button, smash the subscribe button. This video has been brought to you by Squarespace. I don't do any of that, but any donation is always welcome. So here we go with 3 stories. First one's funny, the second one is crazy, and the third one is so, I don't know, it's really amazing. But I swear to you by all that is holy that these stories are very, very true, and also too amazing to some degree. First story is about a guy that I know that's a mega millionaire. Yeah, no wife, no kids, got a lot of money, tighter than the bark on a tree. I'm sorry, this is so funny. you can Anyway, he has a Jeep vehicle. Yeah, one of those SUV Jeep sort of things, and I think it's got like a bazillion miles on it. He should have bought like a new vehicle like a decade ago, but so he's so tight. Someone with I thought he was a vegetarian for many years. He's just too cheap to buy steak. So tight, he told me, he related to me why his engine was destroyed. It's like, well, I thought, that his engine probably imploded on itself because it's got a bazillion miles on it and he's too cheap to buy. No, sorry, the real reason his engine failed on his Jeep was because too cheap to get an oil change. He thought he'd extend it far, far, far. I was like, well, how far did he extend it? I think he went something like, you're supposed to change your oil about every 3,000 miles. I think he went like 30, 40,000 miles without an oil change, and the engine seized. And he told me that the mechanic told him that he's never seen engine oil like that. It was like so thick you had to like slice it as if it was frozen butter. I don't know if you ever tried to slice frozen butter. So the engine imploded on itself because the dude let his engine go maybe 25, I couldn't get an exact number out of him. It'd been so long. 20,000 plus miles over a recommended oil change, which is basically every 3,000 miles. So instead of replacing the vehicle, he's getting a rebuilt engine dropped in there. But people like that are, when he told me that on the phone, I just couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, how could somebody have that much money and be so cheap? There's an old saying about a nickel holding up a dollar. When you cause countless thousands of dollars of damage to your vehicle because you're too cheap to get like a $50 oil change, there's something wrong with you. Here's another story. This is true, and I'm actually embarrassed to tell you this. And some of you may know this story. I'm going to leave the name of the hot spring off for a reason. I'm I had this video up, but the person that owns this property wanted me to take it down. He's also a mega rich person. I did take the video down, but I'm going to relate to you the exact same story that happened to me in 2018. Except that I'm going to leave the name of the hot springs out. Anyway, the hot springs is in southern Idaho. Very, very southern. Just like a few miles from where the bird flies to the North Nevada border. So I was flown out there to this guy who owns a hot springs. We flew into Twin Falls, Idaho, was it? And then we took a van ride down to where the hot springs are, and it's at the bottom of this really steep valley. And this is like the most remote place on planet Earth. We drove for hours and hours of the most remote nothingness you've ever seen. So anyway, the guy did pay for the plane tickets for me to go out there. He wanted me to consult on the springs, and another guy, an old guy with a white beard, kind of looks like Santa Claus. And he said, we have cabins down. Well, this is a millionaire, I thought to myself. Okay, there's cabins at the bottom of this where the springs are at. And the springs are there. And they're not cabins. They were shacks, like tool shacks you would buy, wooden tool shacks you would buy for your lawnmower. They were like 12 by 12. That's not a cabin. That's a shack. I have a cabin, a real cabin. So these unheated, it was freezing. Freezing cold, bitterly cold, and I couldn't see. There's no electricity in there. There's no running water. I had to go use the bathroom, and the toilet is, there's a real toilet there. I don't know what it's connected to, but it was frozen shut. So the water that was in it, since it's basically open air, had completely frozen. And I did fly there on his dime. So he paid for me and this other scientist to, fly out there. He paid for our plane tickets. And the car ride there, I thought, well, this would be like a miniature vacation. So I couldn't see anything since it was dark inside the little shack, which was not a cabin. And there's about only one thing that I'm afraid of, if you want to use the word afraid. It's this thing, and I've known two people in my life that have had it. It's called histoplasmosis. Look it up. You get it from birds and bats, from their poop. And it makes you go blind. Yeah, you might as well kill me rather than make me go blind. And so I set my bag, since I can't see, on top of the bed inside this shack. Not a cabin, a shack. An unheated, unilluminated, dark shack. I was like, what the hell? It's like you sprinkled cornflakes all over the bed if you took a box of Rice Krispies. Like, what is this? So I had my flashlight. I knew where it was in my bag. I turned it on, oh my God. I don't know if it was bat poop or pigeon poop. Somehow, I think it was bat. Worked the way the bed was not like here and there. It was just completely covered in bat poop. Like, oh my God, I just had my hands. And so I thought, well, as gross as that is, histoplasmosis, I flung all the sheets off the bed. It's like, surely, the bed underneath is okay. And this is no lie. I pulled all the covers and all the sheets off. And the bed itself was also covered in enormous amounts. Like, who would put bed sheets and a cover over top of a bed covered? So yeah, there's a lot of tons. Not literally tons, but essentially tons. Unbelievable. This is I don't know how many square acreage the dude, he owns the hot springs. Okay? This is no lie. So I went out of there, but I am in the bottom of a deep ravine where this hot springs is located at in southern Idaho, very southern Idaho. And so I go knocking on doors, a couple of trailers that are off the property. Like, well, no, we can't. I want it out of there. Didn't want it. It didn't have, I'm not made out of money. Furthest thing from it. I don't have the money. Eventually, the third house was a tall guy, gray hair, about 75. I mean, it's like, at this time, it's like 9 o'clock at night. It's snowy outside. You had to go down this treacherous road from Twin Falls, Idaho, many, 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 many miles, and then down this treacherous, icy road at the bottom of the ravine. And the guy's like, oh, I know that guy. Everybody, the guy that owns the hot spring, everybody here hates him. The millionaire guy. He said, everybody hates him. And you go, okay. I was like, I'll pay. I got to get out of here. I got to get me back to Twin Falls, Idaho, and then get an emergency flight out of here. And so I got this guy. He would have had to drive in the middle of the dark on this treacherous, snowy road. So I had to whip out $200 for him to drive me back to a stranger that I don't even know, to drive me back to Twin Falls. And it takes like 50 miles before I've even got cell phone coverage that I can call a hotel, like, are you open? And then also, too, I had to call a relative to make an emergency flight for the next day to fly out of Twin Falls, Idaho. Oh my gosh, unbelievable. So that cost me about $700. $200 for that, was more than $700. The hotel, the new flight, and unbelievable. Oh yeah, but the one thing that I don't know what we're afraid of, histoplasmosis. Look that up. Make you go blind. Here's something else. One of the objects is here on my table. I won't say which it is. Since I'm on YouTube, I meet all sorts of people. I've talked to a few Hollywood folks because they reached out to me. Ages and ages ago, I talked to Tina Turner because she's actually a Buddhist. And I recognized her voice. I was like, this is Tina Turner. And she paused. Anyway, that's a long story. Very, very nice person. That was a really long time ago I talked to her. Talked to a couple other Hollywood people. Anyway, there's a famous, really, really famous, and I'd heard stories back when I was younger about some stuff that just seems too impossible to believe in Hollywood. Well, let me tell you what, when this person sent me a package, who's a really, really nice person, I got to leave names out of this. This person told me something, and it's very similar to what I'd heard decades ago, but I thought, this is too unbelievable. I can't, this can't be true. This is like some crazy stuff that they would make up about, and I really don't have any respect for Hollywood people. I don't. They're fake, they're superficial, they're emotional rather than logical. They're not that smart. An actor is nothing other than a highly paid liar. Acting is lying. You're pretending to be something you're not. So that's all an actor is. These are not good people. I'm not saying there aren't some good ones, but for the most part, these are not good people. Anyway, this very, very famous person, don't ask me who it is. Very, very. So this person says it, this is the way it is, because they know these people. This is not only a Hollywood person, this is a very famous person, right in the smack dab. And I actually looked at the address on the box that was sent to me. It's like, wow, look at this. This is like a real mansion in Hollywood. Where this person... Anyway, what this person told me, I'm getting to the good part here. I really got to be careful in what I say. Told me what actually goes on in Hollywood. And I'll tell you about that in just a second. I still have to not give you any details because they're completely off the hook. So I have to be very gentle in what I say. But when this person told me this, I said, just some of Hollywood should know. This person told me, this very famous person in Hollywood that watches my videos, no, everybody's into it. Yes, you're kidding. No, it's just like, no. You mean like some of them? No, they're all into it. Now that's probably an oversimplification. That's only what this person told me. So what does everybody mean? Does that mean 80%, 75%? Maybe. Anyway, this person told me, who has all the credibility in this world, said that Hollywood does, is that they are a part of a group, okay, that is centered around, I don't care if you believe me or not about what I'm about to tell you, but I tell you right now, if I'm lying, I'm dying, okay? By all that is holy on this earth, what I tell you is true, that was told to me by this very famous Hollywood person. That the group that Hollywood is into is based around, and I looked this up on the internet, I found very few references to it, is based around this witch who herself is originally based out of Massachusetts, and or still is, since the details are skim, are very meager as far as internet search. A witch based in Massachusetts, but apparently now this person either has a subsidiary group or is now relocated to Hollywood, or somewhere in Hollywood. I think they'd have to relocate, but that I don't know. That this group in Hollywood, all these famous actors and other personalities that are famous in Hollywood, are part of a group that is centered around this witch, that I looked up, and this was told to me a year and a half ago. I wanted to relate this story. I cannot remember the name of this witch's name to save my... Even if I remembered it, I wouldn't want to say it for that coming back on me. So anyway, this person told me this group that they're into that's just centered around this witch, the bizarre stuff that they do. And I've heard about this sort of ritualistic, very, very, very heathen activities. Like imagine Sodom and Gomorrah except like times a million. Okay, I think that's info enough. Just Sodom and Gomorrah times a million, right? And I've heard stuff like this to a much lesser degree out of like the Skull and Bones Club, which is what a building up outside of Cambridge, I believe, where things are done and it builds up trust because like George Bush Jr. and George Bush Sr. and some other presidents were a member of, what is it, Cross, Skull and Bones, and they do these things and it builds up like this unbreakable trust. Yeah. In other words, if you're part of this, then you don't snitch on each other because every person, and this was not told to me, but I'm only gathering this from the information that was given to me, every person knows every other person's who is in this group deepest, darkest secrets that would never ever come to light. Never ever. Each person knows every other person's deepest, darkest secrets, and or also they have been doing the same things in this same group. So the person with all the credibility in the world, not saying that this person says they're very famous. I know this person is extremely famous. Extremely. Like, here's a lot of famous people you know in Hollywood, and this person is up here. Okay? Like I said, if I'm lying, I'm dying. And when I asked this person, I said, oh, it just has to be a few people in Hollywood that are doing this. No. This person said, no, they're all into it. What does all mean? I'm not going to speculate. Let's say 70%, 80%. I don't know what all means. Apparently it means a large percentage or a majority. That's all I could gather from that. I won't speculate on that. I have heard stuff to that effect. I have not heard like ringings of that for decades and decades. And when I did hear, it's like, even though I don't have any faith or any trust in any of those famous Hollywood types at all, that seems like a little bit too much. I mean, that sounds like some Hollywood conspiratorial. But this person who has all the credibility in the world in that arena said, oh, this is what's going on. And it's centered around a witch who was originally, or still is, that I don't know, based in Massachusetts. And the rituals that they do and the things that they do, I can't even tell you. Some of those details were told to me, but, I can't say that, just as I can't show you something really, off the scale. Let's just say Sodom and Gomorrah times 1,000. And if I'm lying in what I said, I'm dying. Everything I just told you in these 3 stories. The first one was funny. The second one is embarrassing on me. The bat crap cabin story. Fly all the way out to Idaho, go out in the middle of desolate nowhere, have to bribe an old dude, some total stranger, $200 to drive me up a snowy, treacherous road, and then, many, many, many miles of desolation back to Twin City, Idaho. Twin Falls, Idaho. Let's get Twin City. Twin Falls, Idaho, right? That cost me like $800. I mean, I was literally in Idaho for less than 24 hours. Like, I got to get out of here. I am not spending a single night in a bed that's covered in bat poop. Not like, spot here, a spot there, like covered. Cabin? No, that was a shack. That both pissed me off. It was both embarrassing, but pissed me off. I was so desperate, and still am, by the way. Still am. Desperate for a vacation. I thought, oh, free vacation, I'm going to help this person. And he mentioned the other scientist who I actually met, the old dude, which I can't remember his name to save my life. Old short dude with the gray beard that we met at the Science and Energy Conference when I went out there to Science and Energy Conference in 2018. That was great. Everybody was so nice and kind at the Science and Energy Conference. And I met this billionaire there. He invited me and this old guy out to dinner at this kind of junky restaurant. But I was like, whatever. Seeing Northern Idaho when I went to the Science and Energy Conference was really cool because I don't get to travel. I don't have the money for it. And so maybe the sucker in me, not the sucker in me, the great deep desire within me to have a vacation overrode my logical side of my brain, which dominates most of my head. It's like, free vacation. Yay. Hot springs, float in hot spring water, cabin. Sounds great. I don't mind helping somebody. But no, I am not going to get histoplasmosis, look that word up, by the way, and go blind. No. Even though I don't have it. So not only was that the worst vacation imaginable, it cost me a bunch of money, and it was just pure hell and misery beyond belief. But all three of those stories were true. I told people in live stream, we want to hear the stories. Like, okay, I'll make a video. Because I don't make videos telling stories, but I am this one time. So I hope you like the stories. The third one about what goes on in Hollywood, like I said, once again, if I'm lying, I'm dying. Everything I told you was true as related to me by the person with the most credibility in the world. And it really doesn't change my belief about Hollywood because I don't have any respect for them anyway. Like I said, actors are nothing other than highly paid liars. But that's kind of shocking. It's still kind of shocking. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you liked this video. And happy holidays.